All right, I will get us started today. Welcome, good morning, afternoon, or evening or night. We've got participants who are probably joining us from a lot of different places. So first, a very warm welcome to all of you. And thank you for taking your time to spend with us to learn a little bit more about the Ma Trust webinar and the workshop that we are going to be talking about today. Couple housekeeping items. There are a number who had interest but not time to join us live today, so we are recording. The second is our presentation is informative but very conversational. We would like to capture any questions or thoughts that you have during the time that we are presenting information to you. So feel free to put a question in the chat. We'll watch it. We'll try to get to it while we're talking. We'll leave some time at the end, and if we don't get to your question, we're happy to follow with some answers that you might have after the webinar today. All right, so to get us started, we are going to do some introductions. My name is Heather Bittinger. I am the co-founder of Innovations in Education. And to tell you first about Innovations in Education, this is a partnership between our organizations, Innovation in Education and EDU Africa. Innovations in Education is a partnership between Donna DeGracia, who will introduce herself in a minute, and myself, who has started a consulting group, really with a shared vision that education should really be coming alongside and exciting and guiding people to learn and meeting people where they are. Really with innovative and experiential learning opportunities. We've had a chance to do that in an academic arena, but there's lots of ways to do this outside of a formal institution. And we work with a lot of different partners and people who want to learn things in different ways. Myself, I'm a PA. I have practiced medicine for a number of years. I'm an educator in medical education. And I first became really pumped up and excited about global education, as all of us here are. Over 20 years ago, when I was invited to participate in creating a global health course and then traveling with my colleague Donna. And what I thought was a travel trip and something that I was going to do to recruit sites really became a transformative experience for me. It was really like being given a different pair of eyeglasses to see both my personal life, my professional work in a completely different way. And it really changed how I became a leader or what opportunities I wanted to help create for other people along the way. So it's always been kind of one of those really important founding philosophies for myself, which is really exciting to still do this work over 20 years later. With that, I'll pass it on to Donna for introduction.
Okay, welcome everybody. I'm Donna DeGracia, and as Heather mentioned, I'm co-founder of Innovations in Education. I have recently retired from a long career as a physician assistant and a PA educator. When I think about global health and where it started for me, I have to go way back to childhood. I think growing up in a country that had recently been devastated by a horrible war, I was surrounded by a lot of diseases that most people only read about in books: smallpox, leprosy, tuberculosis. I think one of the most striking things was the impetigo, that I saw children with nothing to treat it with but gentian violet. So a lot of the kids in my neighborhood have their faces painted purple with that. But I really didn't develop an interest in the medical portion of it until I would say until I was in the Peace Corps after college. And then in my career as a PA, I always gravitated towards resource poor areas and worked with a lot of immigrants and refugees, which gave me a different perspective. On the education front, my involvement in global education has been everything from creating courses like Heather mentioned, interprofessional courses to student rotations in global settings. I've done some work with training programs and also a little bit of research. And it was actually with a small research project that I was in Tanzania where I met Adrian, who is with EDU Africa. And I think we've been collaborating ever since. So I'm going to turn it over to Adrian to talk about his organization.
Thanks, Donna, and nice to be here with all of you. Thanks for joining. Yeah, my name is Adrian. I live in Kenya and I work with an organization called EDU Africa. And the goal of our organization, or the purpose of our organization, is really to develop and facilitate educational programs. And the common thread through all of our educational programs, whether they be faculty-led or professional engagement opportunities, or study abroad programs, is that they enhance meaningful transformation. So I think that's where we are really so well aligned with innovations in education, and excited about this collaboration with them on that front. We have bases in Kenya, Zimbabwe, South Africa, and most recently Ghana. And from those bases, we develop and facilitate programs throughout sub-Saharan Africa. Our programs are highly customized. We do it in collaboration with the organizations, students, participants that are coming out with us, and we program in all sorts of different areas. And an area that's really been growing, and I think in interest, well, we've seen a lot of interest in it, is the area of global health. And like Donna said, we've worked on a few projects. I've worked on a few projects with her over the past few years in Tanzania, and yeah, we're really excited about this program that we've got scheduled to run in Kenya later this year. I think when we talk about transformation, it's important for us to be able to identify areas in which we want to see transformation happen, and it's important for us to be able to measure that. So I won't go into too much detail on that now, but one of the areas that we want to see all participants grow in is in the area of professional development. And so, whether it's a faculty-led group or a professional engagement program where we have a mix of faculty and perhaps some students, we want to provide opportunities where there's really an opportunity for professional growth, as well as growth in intercultural competence and other areas. So that's a very quick introduction. Excited to be here. I'd love to introduce my colleagues, Heidi and Billy. Maybe Heidi, you can go first, and then Billy, you can go from there.
Great, thank you, Adrian. So my name is Heidi Barnes. I'm the academic director at EDU Africa. I am classically trained in English literature, but I embarked on a study abroad program myself as part of my PhD studies. And I actually went to the States. So I'm from South Africa, and it was transformative for me. I studied abroad in 2016 when Donald Trump was announced president. So it was a very interesting time in the States. And I think I was just so personally impacted by study abroad that it led me to actually seek a career in international education. And so I've been with EDU Africa now for the past 5, almost 6 years. I'm really passionate about global engagements and about doing them well. And I'm going to hand over now to my colleague, Billy, who can introduce himself and his experience.
Thank you, Heidi. My name is Billy. I am a Kenyan, and I'm based in Kenya. I'm a fine artist and a tutor of art, particularly in cartooning and Afrocentric character creation. I am also very passionately involved in climate change and sustainability. I've been with EDU Africa from around 2020 as a freelance program facilitator. And recently joined EDU Africa full-time as a program designer. And that's the capacity that I am here with you in today. And I'm really excited to engage and mutually benefit each other in the area of global health. Back to you, Heather.
Thank you. So quick introductions of those of us from Innovations in Education and EDU Africa, who have worked together to put on both the webinar and the workshop with travel later this year. We'll segue into a little bit about the purpose of the webinar. So why a webinar today to plan for a workshop later on? And I think the first is to whet appetite and also to engage those of you who are participating in your interest of why you'd want to do such a course. Definitely there is professional or personal experiences that you might want to get out of this. But as you've heard, even to say it's global health, when we talk about health, it's got a wide context of what contributes to health, from safe water to climate change, to location transportation. It's so broad. So I would challenge you really to think about the reasons you're interested in doing a course similar to this, or this course. Like, what is it you're working on besides your personal life, in your professional life, that you might have a project? This is great for faculty or leaders in your organization who might want to have a team of people that you'd lead for a similar course in your organization. The other thing is to just talk about really getting prepared about what preparations you'd need, what the costs of the program, why you'd want to do something like this for your networking opportunity. So just some considerations as you kind of move into the interest phase, into what would it take to actually move forward with a workshop. Adrian, you were going to talk a little bit about some things to consider about in-country travel.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. Sorry, I was trying to find the unmute button there. Yeah, there's certainly a good deal of things to consider. I think I'm sure most people have traveled. It's first and foremost, it's a very a different culture, and so there are certain cultural elements that are good to be aware of. It's a fairly conservative country, and the people are fairly conservative. So, considerations around dress and greetings and just interactions is important. So, some of that stuff would be covered pre-departure. There are, it's not, they may not always be the same creature comforts as they are at home, especially while traveling around. There might not be aircon in the vehicles. There could be bumpy roads. There'll be times when when we're required to maybe walk a little bit further than you might do normally. So those are some things to consider. Billy, I don't know if you've got any other thoughts that you'd like to share at this point. If not, we can move back to Heather.
Yeah, the general level of literacy in Kenya will surprise many. In the rural areas, it's a big struggle, I would say. But then when you go into the urban areas, anywhere within the country, you'll be pretty impressed with the levels of literacy and global awareness across the board, especially in matters of politics and entertainment. You will expect frequent unplanned power outages, what they would tend to refer to in South Africa as load shedding. The tap water is not always safe to drink. You always want to err on the side of caution and either take treated water or the custom bottled water that's usually available for sale, or then you have to boil it quite extensively, I would say, because there are a number of parasites that are quite heat resistant over time. Mosquitoes are a common occurrence, being a tropical country. And so malaria is one of those things that you want to look out for. But on the most part, there will be nothing more than just inconvenience and minor disturbance in most cases. And then, of course, as Adrian mentioned, the proportion of the sun's heat is inverse to availability of AC. So you would need to find alternative ways to keep yourself hydrated and cool. But other than that, I guess it's a pretty adaptable society. It's just one of those places where you will find a number of Kenyans always having a trick or two up their sleeves to ensure that what was previously impossible or impenetrable becomes quite a possibility, and a humorous one at that. And that's the other thing, finally. Humor is both a coping mechanism and a worrying sign of varying degrees of failing in mental health. So you want to approach it from whichever direction the red flags come up from. But humor is just one of those things that we do when everything else is not treating us too well. I think that would be about it from me, Adrian.
Well, great. I thank you for sharing some of the logistics on site for us to consider. And one of the really important partnerships and why this particular workshop grew up from the beginnings that it did is in our understanding and learning of the Ma Trust project there in Kenya. And so we're going to give a little bit of introduction to the Ma Trust project to our participants today. So Billy and Adrian, I'm going to move it back to you to talk a little bit about Ma Trust and share some about that.
All right, thank you, Heather. So before I begin to say anything about Ma Trust, I would like to share an almost 1 minute video that's just going to give us a little bit of context about what we are going to be talking about. And then I'm going to introduce you to a representative from Ma Trust who's going to tell us a little more about the project. So if you would allow me to share my screen. So that's just a little snippet of what the Ma Trust project and a little bit of the surrounding environment looks and feels like. So just to get a little more of context and information about the Ma Trust. Ma Trust is a non-profit organization in Kenya, and they have a primary focus on the Maasai community in the greater Masai Mara region. It has 3 primary areas of outreach. That is livelihoods, where they are empowering the community to take charge of their sustenance and to take care of their sustenance, excuse me. And then there's education, where they empower the future community members. And there's water and sanitation and health, providing clean water and educating community members on safe sanitation practices. Their primary outreach is to women, children, and the youth. And so I would like to introduce you to Simon, who is with the Ma Trust project. And Simon is going to tell us a little bit about what the Ma Trust is involved in on the ground. Simon, how are you? I think you're muted, Simon.
Hi. Hi, everyone, and good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Simon. So, Simon, real quick, we've done a brief intro about who the MAR Trust is. So I would like to hear from you first about the history of the MAR Trust. When and how did the MAR Trust come about?
Thank you very much, Billy and EDU Africa team. So the MAR Trust is a non-profit making organization. We're based in the Masai Mara. It was formed in 2006. And initially we were working with the Olara Oro Conservancy as the only conservancy that we're working with. But with time, the trust expanded to more than or beyond Olara Conservancy. And now we are working with more than 10 conservancies in the Masai Mara ecosystem. So the main objective of the MAR Trust, or the main vision of the MAR Trust, is to ensure that the families in the Masai Mara ecosystem benefit from the protection of wildlife and habitat through evidence-based sustainable development projects, which of course are the project that keeps the community going and appreciating the importance of conserving the environment. The vision of the MAR Trust is to have a socio-economically empowered community where they are living sustainably within the Masai Mara ecosystem. So basically the MAR Trust, we are working closely together with the conservancies to ensure that the benefits of the conservation trickles down to the community members through sustainable projects.
Okay, thank you for that, Simon. So I'm curious to know, what does it take to keep the MAR Trust running smoothly on a day-to-day basis?
So the MAR Trust, we are a team of more than 40 staff, both local, that's Maasai and non-Maasai speakers. And we have, as you mentioned, that we have 3 pillars. Each pillar has got a department and people under each department. So we are 100% dependent on donors who fund the activities. That's the activities, the direct activities, and also the day-to-day operation of the trust. And now that help us to operationalize all the activities that we have as an organization.
Thank you, Simon. So there you've heard from the gentleman. You'll be hearing a little more from Simon as we delve a little deeper into the activities that you will most probably, most likely, most hopefully be engaging in the in-country program. Over back to you, Heather.
Thank you, Billy. And thank you, Simon, for sharing that introduction. We'll get a little bit more into that. As we heard, sustainability is really important. And there's some things to keep in consideration when we're talking about what are components of good projects and good work to do in global health. And one of the things to keep in mind is longevity of the work or projects that you're doing. An example that I experienced early on, after having returned from a global health trip, I was invited to participate in a grant writing process, to which was successful. And I think that was the first experience for me with grant work. And what it taught me, and what I saw, is that while I personally didn't have money to give to an organization who I really believed or saw could use money in my travels, I was able to use my position and my professional life in order to write on someone's behalf or work on projects or teach or create courses that kept on kind of perpetuating that experience or that work or that reciprocity that I had had before. So I think longevity is a really important part of one of the things we think about to do work like this. I think global partners are really important too. Donna, you want to share a little bit about some of our global partners and why mutual goals are important?
Yeah, global partners are essential. Not just helpful, but absolutely essential. As an example, we couldn't have put this program together without the partnership with EDU Africa. And when I'm thinking of partners and forming partnerships, I think of a project I was involved in early on. It's a project in Zambia to improve the lives of children with disabilities. And initially a group of, I think, 6 of us went to Zambia. We'd done a little bit of research beforehand, and we had this idea on what we were going to do. And we started meeting with potential partners on the ground, learning about their work, learning about their vision and what they wanted to do. And in the end, the project that we came up with did not at all look like what we'd envisioned before we left. But we found that we've had a very strong partnership with a vision that was really fit with the goals of both organizations. And that project has resulted in a program and a curriculum that is still going in Zambia after, I believe it's been about 8 years now since we started this project. It's involved students in the United States. It's involved, I don't know how many community health workers in Zambia, and that curriculum has been adopted by the Zambian government for children with disabilities, and there is talk about expanding it to other countries. So that partnership is crucial. Without the partnership, we would have floundered and never been able to do the work that we're doing. I actually just saw a LinkedIn post from one of my colleagues from that first trip to Zambia, and she's headed back for, I think, the probably the 8th year that she's been back working on this project. And the great thing about it is that this project is now totally self-sufficient. It doesn't need our group anymore. So the grant we had initially to start out, even if it has run out and there's no more money there from the grant, the project can go on and can continue to benefit the children there. So the partnerships are crucial in a successful program, in meeting everyone's goals, and really in the longevity of a program. So I will turn that over now to Adrian to talk a little bit more about the logistics of what we have planned.
Great, thanks, Donna. Yeah, so I guess we consider ourselves as EDU Africa first and foremost an educational partner on the ground. A few things that set us apart, or maybe make us a little bit different from others, is that we are based in Africa. We're not outsourcing to anyone. We have a very friendly and highly skilled group of program designers that work closely with Heidi and each other and the rest of our team to develop programs that are in line with what our institutional partners are looking for. We have a very strong focus and great track record in the area of health and safety. It's something we take very seriously. We want to make sure that when we have a group on the ground, they feel safe and they feel well catered to. They have a good place to sleep every night, hot showers, good meals, access to clean drinking water, and so on. So health and safety is very, very important. Health, safety on the roads, safety when visiting our various different partners. We are very committed to amplifying African voices. So wherever we work, it's very important to us that if we're in Kenya, Kenyan people are speaking on behalf of themselves, and it's not somebody else coming in and talking about them. That's important to us. And so, we're very grateful to be working with people like Billy and Simon, who are Kenyans and are real knowledge contributors and experts in their own rights. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, we are very focused on transformation and ensuring that the programs that we put together are transformative in nature, and that we're able to measure and track that. So those are just a few things that set us apart. Planning a program it's always built around a set of learning outcomes or objectives, and everything ties into those. And so we're not just doing stuff for the sake of it. Everything comes back to the goals and what's required in terms of the outcomes, and that's what we've done in the case of the program that we are planning to run a little bit later this year. So I think that's probably it from me. There's probably other things I could say, but Heather, maybe back to you.
Yeah. Another thing we want to really highlight too is sustainability in programming in partnerships. So Heidi and Billy, would you talk briefly about sustainability in our programming and your mission?
Sure. Let me start. Thank you, Heather. I think this ties in with what Donna was saying as well about longevity and projects being able to continue on out of their own accord, but their own need and desire as well after something has been initiated. And if you think about sustainability in that way, the idea that something, an endeavor, a project, an initiative, an idea can sustain itself and wants to sustain itself after that intervention has passed, that's really powerful. And I think that's one of the things that we kind of stand for as our organization. There's a lot of parachuting in and parachuting out in international education and international engagement. And that's something we really want to try and avoid. And I think we've really looked at the structure of this workshop, including the virtual sessions, which I know Heather's going to speak about later, and the in-country portion in very intentional ways to avoid our participants parachuting in and parachuting out through these engagements. But we also need to think about sustainability, I guess, in a wider sense. And the United Nations has sort of 3 pillars that it defines sustainable development around: the economic, the social, and the environmental. And you need all 3 of those pillars at any given time, and to consider all 3 of those pillars at any given time in order for your project to be truly sustainable. And so I think that's also one of the powerful things about this workshop, that even though it's focused on global health, health as a concept has to take those 3 aspects into consideration, because the environmental, the social, and the economic impact how a person has access to or receives or doesn't receive health care or services in any given context. But I know Billy has some wonderful stories and examples of sustainability in context in Kenya that he'd like to share with us. So I'll hand over to him now.
Thank you, Heidi. So just riding on what Heidi has just shared, the parachuting in and parachuting out, while that is happening, something else is going on in between, which is very stubborn. There's a cyclic effect to how the economic, the environmental, and the social life within the Kenyan context plays out. Now that we're talking about the Mar Trust and the environment around the Masai Mara, the dominant communities around there are pastoralist in nature. And pastoralist communities make up the overwhelming majority of citizens who are encountering major health challenges from communicable diseases in particular. And livestock is their source of health and wealth. But ironically, it's also a leading disease transmitter due to interaction with wildlife in pasture and in watering holes. Speaking about watering holes, one of the main, should I say, eyesores or blind spots where sustainability did not happen, where unsustainability has frequently been, the big marker, especially when we've had partners coming in and did not contextualize exactly what was going on. You may or may not know about very famous YouTuber from the US known as Mr. Beast. One of the things that he did is he came into Africa and in a lightning campaign, pretty much, sunk, I think, between 35 to 50 boreholes across tropical Africa. And that was received with a great mix of excitement and also a lot of, you remember when I talked about humor a little earlier? And satire is part of our daily humor dose, especially when we think about our politicians who would spend millions of Kenya shillings, equivalent to hundreds of thousands of US dollars in many cases, and entourages and motorcades to launch just one borehole. And a couple of people began to flag, some of these activities and say, you see, the biggest thing about the boreholes, though, is within less than a couple of rainy seasons tops, the maintenance of the borehole has pretty much gone south. And before you know it, we have created a new problem out of a solution that probably needed to have been approached differently or better. This is 2024. You wouldn't believe that 4 years have passed since COVID-19 hit our shores. And one of the big items around COVID-19 was the disposable non-biodegradable masks. that everybody, the mask mandates and the political and social controversies that those, brought about. And in Kenya, it gave rise to a whole new problem around respiratory diseases, because this is non-biodegradable. And when they first checked in, when they were first imported, they were extremely expensive. So what would happen is that people would dispose of their masks, and then before you know it, there were people within the slum communities that would collect used masks and clean them in stream water. And the water was not exactly the very best that there was, and gave rise to a whole new problem, because of poor contextualization of just how to ensure that this was going to be sustainable. Here was another one, diapers on donkeys. Who's ever heard of anything like that? Anybody? Raise hand. No? You can't make this stuff up. A few years ago, the area where we are located, EDU Africa, is a locality called Limuru. And Limuru is famous for a number of things: tea plantations, scenic scenery, weather that does its own thing. It rains a couple of minutes and then the sun is shining and then it gets gloomy again. Limuru is a beautiful place, but it's also one of the places in Kenya that has the highest population of donkeys. The problem that we had with donkeys is they are notorious for dropping their dung everywhere they go, and quite a number of parasites, would be responsible for permeating into water sources and are consumed by other livestock. And within the town area, that was quite a problem. And so the local council came up with a bylaw that required every donkey owner to fit diapers on the donkeys. And of course, some well-heeled politicians brought in huge consignments, imported huge consignments of diapers. And if your donkey was not appropriately dressed, then there was going to be huge fines that were associated with that. Of course, back to the Kenyan humor and satire, that bylaw didn't live very long, but the embarrassing stories that emanate from that are still with us, I think, over 15 to 20 years later. And those are just little hints of unsustainability here and there. And so it begs the question, when the local community in particular does not have a very strong foundation and culture around sustainability, the loose ends are left to be tied mostly by well-meaning people that do not have a proper context of what's going on, and by unscrupulous local people who see the partner community as a quick and convenient get-rich-quick scheme. And those are some of the things that we want to look out for, because you do not want to create scenarios where some form of apathy or distrust develops over time. And so that's why sustainability is so important to us as EDU Africa, and I'm sure to everyone that's involved on this webinar and everybody else that would be jumping on board. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great examples. Thank you for sharing those.
Back to you.
Great. It does highlight the importance of what goes wrong or what could go wrong when sustainable efforts are not being thoughtfully thought about. And kind of the very last thing we wanted to touch upon too is reciprocity, which is similar, but it's really in giving back to partners. So Donna, I think you've got a story to share about reciprocity, and then we're going to move our attention to a little bit more about the Ma Trust project. We've got about 10 minutes to spend there.
Thank you, Simon. Those were great examples, and really points out the importance of what I was saying earlier about on-the-ground partners that know the landscape. But reciprocity is another problem. A lot of times, just as some of the programs that are created are not sustainable, many are kind of a one-way street without a real vision for creating opportunities for our partners. We're getting all these great opportunities, going to other countries, having transformative experiences, but what's in it for our partners other than maybe a little bit of money that we bring in or something. Reciprocity is something that we need to keep in mind. And I'm going to share a very positive example. And I think some of you, both presenters and maybe some in the group that are attending, recognize this story. But a colleague and friend of mine years ago was very involved in Tanzania in women's health and oncology, particularly in breast cancer and other things, and took students to Tanzania on a rotation where they did a combination of both learning and teaching. But one of the physicians in Tanzania who was crucial to this effort really wanted to advance his career. And this colleague was very thoughtful about how to do that and managed to find a way to bring him to the United States where he could learn some new procedures, get some books, and was able to fund his trip to the United States through speaking engagements for him at 2 different universities, as well as some other work with grants and with the universities. But that relationship has continued, and now through efforts of people that he has helped, he is now working on his PhD in Amsterdam, as well as will be attending a training program for fistula repair that will give him more skills that he can take back to Tanzania. And this is the kind of thing that we really want to do. We don't want it to be a one-way street. We want we want our partners to benefit as much as we do, and we want to provide opportunities. So reciprocity is always something we have to keep in mind. That's all I'm going to say on that,
Yeah.
but I think that we really want to learn more about the Ma Trust. I think that's why everyone's here.
Yeah, well, let's go there next and turn it back to Billy and Simon. We saw a brief amount of the video, which is kind of a teaser. So tell us a little bit more. What really are some of the perceived successes and or progresses that Ma Trust is hoping to achieve? Where are some of the needs? Where could our attendees kind of identify places that they could relate to? Can you tell us more a little bit about that?
All right, thank you, Heather. So maybe let me just talk about what our participants are likely to experience and encounter when they are in country with the Ma Trust. So they will have a meet and greet with the Ma Trust. They will get a chance to visit the Talek Maternity Clinic, which Simon is going to be talking a little bit about in a bit. They will have the opportunity to have lunch and an afternoon workshop with the clinic staff. Then they will get to engage with the water and sanitation, beadwork, beekeeping sections of Ma Trust to understand how health is integrated into a range of ecosystemic factors. And they are also going to engage in an intercultural competence workshop with Ma Trust, including discussion on culture and healthcare and the interface, and how does this impact collaborative efforts between the US and Kenya. So it's going to be quite fun and learning-packed experience. And as we talk about a learning-packed experience, Simon, please tell us a little bit about the beekeeping projects. How many farmers and hives you have, how do they market their produce, and what should participants expect to engage in? And before we go into the next couple of questions, like real quick, a little bit about the beekeeping project.
Thank you, Billy, and thank you for the introduction that you given of the Ma Trust and the expectation of the team that will be visiting us and how they're going to engage with us. So the beekeeping project, it's one of the oldest projects that we have as an organization. It started as a project for women, where we had 105 women from 2 groups, that's in Talek region. They own beehives, but now there were many challenges that were experienced during that time. As you know, or as you may have heard, that the Maasai community is a patriarchal community where most of the duties or responsibilities are for men, and women are left to take care of the household chores. So this did not went down well because women did not have the expertise, did not have the knowledge to do beekeeping. And also it's again against the culture to have them go and climb the trees to hang the beehives. So that was one of the main challenges that was experienced. Another challenge that was experienced in this project was the honey badgers. Due to the lack of knowledge on how to do apiary maintenance, we have honey badgers coming to eat all the honey. So at the end of the period, or when you're going to try to harvest the honey, you'll find that all of them has been eaten by the honey badgers. So in 2021, the project was revamped again. And as an organization, we had a beekeeping coordinator who is a trained expert in beekeeping. And he has been able to do some training or do some trainers of trainers using the trainers of trainers model, where he has trained 6 community members, 2 women and 4 young men. We've been able now to do other trainings or training other farmers, beekeeping farmers in different regions. So in total, we are working with 8 regions, and each region has got a representative who has been trained on to become a trainer of trainer. And we have a total of 231 farmers, beekeepers from these regions, and with an approximate number of 1,155 beehives. So these beehives are located in the conservancies in the individual lands, where at least the bees can be able to get nectar from flowers, and also in areas that we have got a good supply of water. What we expect the participants to participate when they are coming tomorrow is that we have the honey processing activities that will be done by the team in the mattress, led by the beekeeping coordinator. And also they'll be able to participate in the value addition of bee products. So that's the making or the production of candles, lip balms, and body creams. So those are the main activities that we expect the participant to participate during their visit. And the market for this product, for example, the honey, the farmers are encouraged to, or they're open to sell their honey anywhere or where they want to. That's the camps, the cooperatives, the conservancies, and even individual buyers. But a majority of them do prefer to sell their honey to the mattress, where we now do the processing and we sell the honey at our outlet shop. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Simon. So the Talek Maternity Clinic, what would you like our participants to know about this exciting new initiative? How was it conceptualized, and when do you envision it to be up and running?
So the Talek Maternity Health Center, it's a new project we have, and we hope that it will start to be operational from end of January. It's under the water and health pillar. And as you mentioned earlier, that most of the projects that are done in maybe I can say the Mara, let me take Mara as an example. Donors donate money, projects are done or constructed, but after a while they tend to be a white elephant project. That's because of the sustainability plans that are lacking. But for the Talek Maternal Health Center, it's it's the first facility to have such a kind of plan, where it will be able to offer up to assisted deliveries, that's including cesarean section, and also it will have a maternity shelter. So under this maternity shelter, the women can be able to come in 2 weeks before delivery, and they can stay up to 2 weeks after delivery, where they're being taken care of by the health providers. So something fascinating about this Talek Maternal and Newborn Child Health Center, it began, I mean, when you come to the Mara, you can be able to see the transport or the road networks are very pathetic, especially during the rainy season. And the health centers that we have in the ecosystem are quite far from each other. So people accessing these health centers can be a very big challenge. So take an example of a woman who is in labor, and she has to go to the health center using a motorbike. So you can just imagine this the situation or the risk that she is putting herself and together with the baby. So the Talek Maternity will provide improved service delivery or service provision when it comes to maternal health care. So we are working closely with the partners, that's Gertrude's, which is a hospital that's specialized in children. in Africa. It's the only children facility or the specialized children in Africa, and they have more than 80 professionals that are specialized on children. So we are working closely with them, and again with the community health partners, where the facility sits on their land, which is it's a mission. It began as a mission organization that are providing health services together with missionaries or evangelism. So we are working closely with them. And again, we are working with the Ministry of Health. That's for sustainability reason. We might assume that the trust will not be there after some time, but the Ministry of Health and community health partners will be able now to do the day-to-day operationalization of the Talek Maternal Health Center.
Those are some exciting opportunities for participants to learn from.
Right.
And
Thank you very much,
interact
Simon.
with.
Back to you, Heather.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you both. I appreciate hearing that. We have about 5 minutes to wrap up our webinar today. And in our final 5 minutes, we want to tell you just very briefly about the workshop, because this webinar was to inform us about the workshop coming up. The workshop really provides a number of strengths for participants. It starts off 6 weeks prior to travel with a hybrid, so it's a hybrid course, and the pre-departure time is really important for these things that we've talked about today. If we could just wrap those all up into understanding the why that we would want to participate in this course and travel to Kenya. And it sets the tone for our travel, prepares for the opportunity to really kind of ground us. And the experiential learning piece of it is really important, and we will all bring our own talents to the travel that we do. In sake of time, we have some other participation that could happen, but I think we need to move ourselves forward a little bit in our itinerary and acknowledge that part of the whole course is that you have a pre-departure virtual portion, and this is about 10 credits worth of coursework that comes with the cost of the programming, just as a service to the programming piece of it that prepares you. And then in the in-country portion, maybe we just pause there for a second in terms of timing. If Adrian, Billy, or Heidi, you want to share a little bit more about any other in-country timing. And then we return for a post-trip debrief. And this is really important for a number of reasons. So in our final minutes, I'm going to pass it to Adrian and Billy and Heidi for that in-person comments here.
Thanks, Heather. Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of what will happen, but I think maybe it's worth mentioning the outcomes that we've built the whole program around, and these are to apply best practice, to understand how to apply best practice in global health programming, to hone intercultural, interprofessional, and leadership competencies, to engage in the complexities and interconnectedness in global health, be able to build a robust toolkit for sustainable global health work in the context of personal and professional goals, better understand the culture and medical context of Kenya, and identify opportunities for continued engagement through specific projects in rural Kenya. So it was with those outcomes in mind that we built this this program, and it would be our hope that participants who join it are able to engage in those various learning elements of learning. I don't know if Heidi or Billy, you've got anything to add there.
Perhaps I could just say very quickly, your in-country portion will be a combination of visiting and experiencing and sensing the different sites that you've learned about in the pre-departure piece, but also reflecting on that. There's the meaningful reflection sessions that are built into the itinerary. So there's a little bit of downtime because sometimes we tend to over program when we travel. So that has been taken into consideration. And there is also a safari, which we tend to think is educational because you're learning about the environment, which is an important part of sustainability. It's also an amazing thing just to witness firsthand.
How could you go to Africa if you've never been there without a safari? I'm going to spend our final minute with some next steps, but I also want Donna to share any last minute thoughts about the pre or post departure portions of the curriculum. Is there anything else that we need to hit before that?
I think
and thank you to our participants who are kind of taking off a little bit.
Yeah, I think the only thing is that we are, for those participants who are PAs, we are planning to apply for CME credits for this course, and that attendance to the virtual part as well as the in-country part will be important for that. We think that it's an excellent program and well worth the educational credits that come with it. But I'll turn it back to Heather for those last kind of logistical things.
Very good. So thank you all for participating. I know some of you are jumping off. For those of you who have participated and anyone who couldn't make it, we will be sending a link to the recording as well as a link here for just an information form about, are you interested? Do you need more information? What information do you need? Are you interested in going, but the timing doesn't work? We'll also be hosting a Facebook Live session next week on Tuesday evening for a Q&A session if anyone needs for that. And I think I've been reading in the text a little bit, ideas. We do have dates set for in-portion country. And so we can send those are on that web form that I have just provided a link to, and for which we will send to you after the case. And also a general itinerary is set, so we can talk about kind of sharing that as well. It's really important if you are considering travel right now. We will get to some details in the pre-departure type of the course, but things like getting a visa, preparing a passport. There are some in-country specific things like an ETA, similar to a visa, that will need to be taken into consideration. So if you're thinking about going, now is the time to kind of consider some of the supportive things that you need to get into place. But we look forward to being a resource for you. Thank you to all of those who have presented, and this partnership is a place I have really learned a ton from as we work together. Looking forward to traveling again and participating in a course like this. Let us be here to answer any questions that you have. And thank you again for your time today.
I'd just like to throw in one more little thing, and that is that even though this is advertised as global health, as Heidi pointed out, global health is all-inclusive. So if you have friends, family members, others who would be interested in joining you, please let them know about this. And keep in mind that the price for it, once we have a group, will depend on the number of participants, because some things are specific to the individual, but others are inclusive for the group.
Very good.
And we will be around for a few minutes if anyone has questions.
Yep. So we'll stay on for questions, and that concludes the webinar for today. So thank you very much.
Well done, everyone.
Okay, I'm going to stop recording.